Welcome to your Get That Nugget for GCSE English Literature. Today we're going to continue to focus on how we approach an unseen poetry question. We are going to put the list structure into practice and look at what a model paragraph would look like. This session is to complement your lessons with your teacher and not to replace them in any way. So once again, before we start, I'm just going to remind you that we are using that list structure. That is how we're going to unpick that poem. So you have language, imagery, structure and theme. So we are looking at words, types of words. We are then looking at figurative language. Then we're going to look at structure, so how that poem is put together. And then we're going to look at the theme of the poem, the big idea of the poem. So the poem we're going to be looking at today is called Blessing. And again, before we start, we're going to look at who is talking, what the tone is, what's happening in the poem, but we're also going to read the question first so that we can identify the key theme that we are looking for. So in Blessing, how does the poet present ideas about poverty and wealth? Okay, so we are looking at how the poet focuses on the idea of those that don't have anything and those that have lots. The skin cracks like a pod. There never is enough water. Imagine the drip of it, the small splash, echo in a tin mug, the voice of a kindly God. Sometimes the sudden rush of fortune. The municipal pipe bursts, silver crashes to the ground and the flow has found a roar of tongues. From the huts a congregation, every man, woman, child for streets around butts in, with pots, brass, copper, aluminium, plastic buckets, frantic hands and naked children, screaming in the liquid sun, their highlights polished to perfection, flashing light as the blessing sings over their small bones. So if we look at who is talking, again, we've got a third person narrator, someone who is observing an event. What is the tone? The tone is positive. Okay, we start with the idea of skin cracks like a pod, there never is enough water. But then we have this event in the middle and it is all positive. Kindly God, rush of fortune, silver. So the tone is positive, thankful, and there is a religious element to it. Here though, where we get the listing, there is this sort of idea of it being frantic, there being a bit of panic or a bit of excitement. And what is happening? Essentially, the poem starts by telling us that it is in a place where there is never enough water, and then a pipe bursts and suddenly there is water everywhere and people are desperately trying to get hold of it. So once we've got that, we are looking at the idea of poverty and wealth. So the idea that for people who are poor, very different things can mean wealth. So, silver, sudden rush of fortune, blessing, voice of a kindly God. This idea that water, which is something we take for granted, is something that is vital to these people and is seen as fortune and silver. So we're going to start unpicking using the list structure. So for language, we have that idea of fortune, of wealth. So the semantic field of wealth. because we're going to link that back to the question. So the quotations you would use there would be fortune or silver. For imagery, we're going to use the sudden rush of fortune, that metaphor, because again it suggests that what is worth something to someone is worth much more to someone if they don't have it. So sudden rush of fortune, water is seen as priceless. Structure, we come down to this verse, you have that listing which suggests that desperation to get hold of the water. And then the theme, the poorest people will see even the simplest things So we need water to live, but if you are in a world where there isn't enough water, then it is seen as something that is priceless. So, again, we've done that super quickly. We've understood the poem, we've done our brief plan, and it doesn't have to be any more than this as long as you know what you're saying. So the semantic field of wealth, fortune and silver, metaphor, sudden rush of fortune, the listing suggests desperation, and the idea of blessing, we need water to live, and therefore if you are in poverty, what constitutes wealth, what constitutes fortune means something very different. So now I want to have a look at what a model paragraph would look like. So the writer describes the breaking of the pipe as a sudden rush of fortune. So there is our quotation, that's AO1. And then we identify the technique, that's our AO2, and we go on to analyse that, okay? So metaphor suggests both that the people are lucky that they have water, but could also be linked to the idea of wealth. So this could suggest that the people in the poem are so poor that water is a luxury. Equally, it could suggest a country so lacking in water that wealth is irrelevant. So we are looking at two different interpretations there. That is our understanding of the poem, that is our AO1. In addition, it suggests a value to water, which links to the idea of water being needed to live. That's our AO2. Water is also described as silver, a metal which is used to make money. This again assigns worth to water that may not exist normally. By doing that, the poet suggests that worth is assigned to the thing that you need. Okay, so we come back down to the bottom. This is AO1 and AO2 because it suggests our understanding of the poem and also the writer's intention. And so we need to be really clear that it is not just about translating the quotation, but that we are looking at all the possible connotations, we are looking at all the possible interpretations. However, again, each paragraph we are only looking at about 10 lines of your writing. You do that 4 times, 1 for language, 1 for imagery, 1 for structure and 1 for theme. So this is obviously the imagery paragraph. We know that because we are talking about metaphors. So if we go back to our plan, and if you now go away and write one of the other paragraphs, whether that is for language, structure or theme, you can either look at the semantic field of wealth and what that implies about water, the listing used in the other stanza and how that suggests desperation, or the big idea that we need water to live. We will leave you with that there just for 2 minutes so that you can make sure you pick your quotation. So take this away and write one of the other paragraphs either for language, structure or theme.